Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a great Saturday so far as we begin it. But anyway, today we're going to review another small set. We've got 2003 Press Pass Trackside's License to Drive set. But before we do that, we're going to review a few diecast cars that I picked up last night at the Indianapolis Speedrome. I do hope you all enjoyed that real small video that I had last night of one of the heat races for the figure 8 portion. The actual main for the figure 8 portion was very, very exciting, but unfortunately I did not film that one because I did not bring my tripod with me, and it would have been incredibly painful to have held my phone sideways for a 50-lap feature because I was already probably developing arthritis after the 8-lap heat race. So anyway, I picked up 4 more of the Richard Petty Fan Appreciation Tour from 1992. I'd like to try to get this whole set put together. You see it has the Richard Petty car, and up here the Fan Appreciation Tour logo on the top. Then it does have the diecast car, and in the card representing each race behind the little car and the little stand. This one was the Spring Rockingham race, the Goodwrench 500. And of course the backs of every car will have the date there on the back. We'll try to get it in focus for you a little bit. And it's not going to work with us, but that's the one from the Spring Rockingham race. So I think I've got 8 or 10 of these cars in total now. I'm going to have to round them all up and maybe get a display case or something for them. This is the Spring Bristol race, the Food City 500. There you see a nice picture, and that's what the Bristol stands look like in '92. I need to zoom in on that and see if I can figure out. It looks like Darrell Waltrip, Morgan Shepherd, and Sterling Marlin. That picture most likely is from 1980, or Brett Bodine and Sterling Marlin. That picture would be from 1989 or 1990, so that's either Morgan Shepherd or Brett Bodine in the 15. Not 100% sure on that one, but I know that the picture is not from 1992. Our third one, here you see, is from the Trans-South 500, also the Spring Darlington race. It's just ironic that I picked 3 spring races. Those were the 3 that were my favorites that they had at the stand. And again, you look at it, some of them have the dates printed in white, some of them have them printed in black. I don't know if that's a variation or what have you. And I just now noticed this, that they have the, instead of STP on the hood, it has Darlington on the hood. So I need to start looking at that as well and just double check and make sure that they're all printed up the same within their own set, or within their own race. And this is my favorite one that I seen last night. Is from the All-Star race, One Hot Night, the Winston. And I'm glad that they actually put the Winston banner on there. There you see the One Hot Night. This was the first time that the All-Star race was run under the lights. Charlotte Motor Speedway had Musco lighting installed in late 91, so that they could run the All-Star race at night in 1992. And I suggest everybody throw that in your little search bar there on YouTube, because that was not only an exciting night altogether, but the finish was just downright incredible. So let's go ahead and review this set really quickly. It is a 27 card set. Press Pass was making these really, really weird sets as far as the numbers go. You can see it's kind of got rounded, the 4 full corners are rounded, and then the one is just indented a little bit here on the lower right-hand side. They're a very attractive card. These would probably be really nice to get signed because they're not super glossy at all. Maybe if a driver signed them in like a bright silver or a lighter colored Sharpie, it'd probably turn out pretty good. But there you see Greg Biffle on the front. This was when he was driving for Roush Racing. This was his rookie season. He did score a win during his rookie season of 2003. But he was not Rookie of the Year. Jamie McMurray was. So I kind of find that a little bit weird. And there you see the backs. I'm not going to flip all these over because they're printed awkwardly. If you flip the card over that way, it's upside down. So just going to show you what the backs look like. It just kind of gives you a quick little bit of information about the driver. Nothing real technical. There we have Todd Bodine. This was the Travis Carter / Sam Belvanis owned number 54 card. National Guard sponsored this card, and of course they would leave this team at the end of this year and go to sponsor Craig Biffle's team the next year. They only had one top 10 that year. I think it was in 8th place at Pocono, maybe. I can't remember. But they had a really, really disappointing season that year. There's Ward Burton. I do like they have the facsimile signatures on there, too, so that makes it pretty cool. Ward was driving for Bill Davis Racing at this time, and this was kind of the height of their relationship. They had won the Daytona 500 and Loudon the year before, the only year that Ward won 2 races in his career. Of course, they would be one of the teams that would switch to Toyota in 2007. They did lose their Dodge factory support, I believe, in 2006, so they ran the whole year with a Dodge but no factory support. Caterpillar would stay with this team. Ward would be released from this team in 2008, I believe, midway through or near the end of the year. And then in Caterpillar would leave to go to Richard Childress Racing not too long thereafter. So I think they were with the team for another year or two with Dave Blaney, and later, no, Scott Wimmer was already with the team at that point. So that they just had a lot of weird things going on there. Dale Jr., of course, they numbered at 08. Maybe their computer program at the time required a 2-digit car number, so I always didn't like it when the cars numbered 1 through 9 had to use a 0 system. But nonetheless, Dale Jr. driving for DEI. And this was right before his series of concussions and injuries that I believe helped lead to his lack of competitiveness, would be a good way. I think the sports car race, the big fire that he had in 2004 out at Sonoma, I think that really changed him as a driver, made him less aggressive, less of a risk taker. But that's just my personal opinion. Here's Jeff Gordon, who at this point is still several years from retirement, but several years within his career. Probably not the most dominating time of his career, but definitely not a time when he was considered washed up. I think Jeff got out right at the right time of his career. Brett Bodine. Many people don't realize Brett Bodine did carry the Hooter sponsorship briefly in 2003. I believe this was the last year that Brett tried to run his own team before they just closed up shop, and he became pace car driver for many years at NASCAR. I'm not sure if he still is or not. But Brett had a really rough go of it after Junior Johnson sold him the 11 team. Ricky Craven, the 32 Tide car. This was owned by Cal Wells, former IndyCar owner. Ricky has the record for the smallest margin of victory over Kurt Busch in 2003 at Darlington. Throw that one in the YouTube search bar. You'll really like that finish. You have Bobby Labonte here, who was just a few years removed of his only Cup Series championship, driving for Joe Gibbs. He would only drive for Joe for 2 more years before moving to Richard Petty Motorsports. About this time was when Bobby's career started taking that late career downward spiral that a lot of drivers experience. Robby Gordon, this was probably the high point of his career. He was racing for Richard Childress the year before. In 2001, he won his first race for Richard Childress at New Hampshire. I can't remember if it was 03 or 04, but he won both road course races for Richard Childress as well. Shortly after that, he would form his own team, and then he wouldn't be as competitive and would have some controversy along the way. There was an incident, I want to say in 2005 at New Hampshire, where he was in an incident with Michael Waltrip, so you'll have to look that one up too. That was pretty hysterical, especially the interview part. Watch it. There's a little colorful language in that interview as well, so if you have kids in the room, you may not want to have them around. Here's Jeff Burton. This would be the last year Citgo would sponsor Roush Racing. They would move on. Actually, I think they would move out of the sport as a sponsor, but they were with this team for a few years from the end of 2000 season. Exide pulled out near the end of 2000. Citgo came on board. So the last 6 or 8 races of 2000, Citgo had 2 cars on the track. They had the 99 and the 21, the Wood Brothers car of Elliott Sadler at that time. Midway through 2004, Jeff Burton would leave Roush Racing and go drive for Richard Childress, finishing the year in the number 30 AOL car. Here you see the second incarnation of the M&M's car. This one was driven by Elliott Sadler. They had this sponsorship, I believe, from 2002 or 2003. I can't recall entirely. but they had it for up till 2006. Then in '07, I'm sorry, they had it through '07. Then in '08, the M&M sponsorship went to Kyle Busch's team at Joe Gibbs, where it remains today. This sponsorship, or actually this car, in 2005, I believe it was, Elliott Sadler left this team to go drive for Evernham, and David Gilliland took over this car. Now we have an actual numbered 01 car. This isn't car number 1, this is car number 01 of Jerry Nadeau. I believe Jerry was, he could have done some good things with this car, and he ended up getting critically injured at Richmond, I believe in 2003. He had a severe head injury, to which he still has side effects of to this day. Not sure what the injuries actually were, as far as like if it was a basilar skull fracture or what have you, but he did have a lot of bad side effects from that wreck. Here we have Ryan Newman. This was 1 year removed after winning Rookie of the Year. You can see how much younger Ryan looks in there. I think so far that's been the only active driver that we've come across. So this was when he was driving for Penske. This was also Penske's first year when they switched to Dodges. They became ultra competitive in 2003, especially Ryan, winning 8 races and several poles, and just had an incredible season that year. Here we have the number 1 car of Steve Park. Steve had a crash in 2001 at Darlington in the Busch Series race. Under caution, was hit very hard right behind the driver's door by Larry Foyt, had a severe head injury, which I truly believe affected the rest of his career. People say it didn't. Steve says, I think he says it didn't. But listen to an interview before and listen to an interview after, and he sounds and looks like a totally different person. Ricky Rudd, who was near the end of his career here driving for the Wood Brothers. I was really hoping that this combination would end up being a winning combination, but unfortunately for Rookie and the Wood Brothers, they just didn't match up well, and their performance showed on the track, as they were always running between about 18th to 20th. Kind of mid-pack team, but the Wood Brothers at the time really didn't have the funding like they have now, so I can understand that. Ken Schrader, this was the Beth Ann Morgenthau car, BAM Racing as it was called, number 49. They had some sponsorship from AT&T and a few other just random sponsorships, but this was Kenny's first year driving this car. Jimmy Spencer driving the Sirius Satellite Dodge for Jim Smith and Ultra Motorsports. I think this was just a one-year deal. Then in 2004, the team folded after a few races after they couldn't find a sponsorship. But he had a couple of good races and a run-in with Kurt Busch at Michigan that ultimately led him to be suspended for one race. Tony Stewart, back when he was driving for Joe Gibbs, so this was the year after Tony won his first championship in the Cup Series. Rusty Wallace, now retired, works for MRN. This was the, Rusty still had 2 more seasons left, as he would retire at the end of 2005. And I see that they used 2, so I don't know why they used 08 on Junior, so maybe somebody there just made a mistake at press pass. That's been known to happen. Michael Waltrip, who's now an analyst for Fox, this was during his time at DEI. And this would also be the last season that Michael Waltrip would record a career win. He had 1 win in 2000, 1 win in 2001, and he had 2 wins in 2003, Daytona and Talladega. Snessie, now we go back to the 0 number system. So we have 04 of Mike Skinner. And this was the last year that the Kodak sponsorship would be on the Morgan McClure team. They also switched from Chevrolets to Pontiacs this year, as their team ended up getting lower and lower and lower down the General Motors food chain. They did switch back to Chevrolet when Pontiacs went out of the sport in 2004. You have Kyle Petty here. One of his last full-time seasons driving for the Petty family team, the Richard Petty Motorsports. I still want to call it Petty Enterprises, but it's Richard Petty Motorsports. We have Kevin Grubb. Of course, a sad story with Kevin. He took his own life in the early 2000s, I think 2005 or 6. Not sure what the story is behind that, but he did get suspended a couple of times by NASCAR for substance abuse. You know, it's a very sad story. You don't like to talk about that thing, but it is reality. Kevin did have some really, really good runs for a lot of different teams in the Busch Series. Don't know what would have become of him. I mean, he may have got a good cup ride and became really good. You just never know. This is Steadman Marlin. This may be considered Steadman's rookie card. I'll have to look into that. But Steadman was driving like a Ganassi developmental car, sometimes with his, that's a 30 car, so it was with Turner Motorsports, not Turner Motorsports, Todd Braun, before it became Turner Scott and all that this team's had several incarnations as well. But it was sponsored by Keystone Light, which was a subsidiary of the Coors Brewing Company, which his dad Sterling was sponsored by. There we have Damon Lusk. This was an Evernham Motorsports Dodge in the Busch Series. Damon was an up-and-coming driver, part of the Dodge developmental program of the early 2000s, and it just never materialized. Looks like we have a couple of cards sticking together here, do we? Yes, we do. Okay. Our next to last card is Scott Wimmer. This is also a Bill Davis racing car, but this was in the Busch Series because you can tell it's a Monte Carlo. He was also in Bill Davis's developmental series in the Busch Series. Scott did end up getting a third-place finish in the 2004 Daytona 500 after he replaced Ward Burton in late 2003. I guess it was 2003 when Ward was replaced. So in 2004, Wimmer replaced Burton full-time in the 22 Cat Dodge, and he recorded a third-place finish in the 04 Daytona 500. And then our last car here, another Todd Braun car driven by Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy, an IndyCar champion in 1996, signed to drive this car for a few races. Was running in the top 10 in the last lap at the Busch race at Daytona, was involved in a crash, ended up finishing, I can't remember, 20-something. Then he ran one more race at Milwaukee later that year. He just had an average run and again finished in the 20s, I think. So nothing came of a NASCAR career for Jimmy, but they did make a couple of cards of him, so I was happy for that. But I do appreciate you guys watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed the extra video from last night of the Figure 8 races. And later today, we're going to go ahead and open one pack of the 2018 Topps Heritage WWE and one box of the 2018 Leaf Certified. So I hope you enjoyed the die-cast cars at the beginning. I hope you enjoyed the little set review. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday. When we get to 500 subs, you know what's going to happen. We're going to have another giveaway, and it will be a relic giveaway. So I've just got to go through all my relics, figure out which ones that I think you guys might like the most, and we'll get them set up on those little easels. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great rest of your Saturday.